Welcome to the Silent Thinking Podcast, a space to slow down, breathe, and reconnect. Today, I'm reading from The Way of the 3-Year-Old Why by Donn. Just listen and let the stillness support you. Chapter 2, Wednesday morning, May 17. Dan sipped his coffee, good, even though it had gone cold. He usually began his coffeehouse working sessions by flipping through email and responding to anything on fire so he could concentrate on creating material. Today, that didn't seem so important. He had already prepped the material for the communication workshop he had lined up a week from Friday. His next keynote was scheduled in 2 months, too far off to know what the nursing schedule would look like, close enough to make it hard to find a replacement speaker. He considered the best use of his work time as he looked around the familiar space of the blissful being. From his favorite table near an electric outlet, he could see over half the shop and knew it as well as his own home. The blissful being actually comprised 3 levels of an old warehouse. The retail coffee house lived at ground level on the middle floor, with the roastery in the basement and the office meeting room level upstairs. Ancient hardwoods carved by unknown machinery formed the coffee house floor. Eclectic tables of different sizes filled the space, some intimate, some large. Booths with padded seats lined the front windows, while the back had 2 conversation pits with overstuffed leather chairs and sofas in front of a fireplace. Close to the front sat a small raised stage with a piano. At one time, the coffee house had featured live music and open mic night, but now the stage held a couple more tables and a sign saying, "Please don't play the piano." Close by, the owner's original red roaster, with which he began experimenting with batches of coffee beans, presided in retirement. Then recognized the regulars amidst the soft overhead lighting. Pictures of coffee cherries, coffee beans, coffee flowers, and coffee farmers adorned most walls, interspersed with exhibitions of local artists. Maybe this would be a good time to get the website finally working properly, Dan thought. In years past, Dan had designed an entire website in PHP, but he quickly became bored with the routine of debugging code. He couldn't yet justify paying someone else to take care of his website, but he tried to make do with easily available templates. Hope's nursing schedule had recently had hardly any gaps, just an occasional night shift every couple of weeks. But one nurse had been talking about possibly moving into a clinical setting for higher pay. More than once, Dan had to cancel a speaking gig or workshop at the last minute because a nurse quit. That worried him. His upcoming keynote fell just about at the time Hope's next bronchoscopy came due, and he had little to no leeway on scheduling that. He thought about simply canceling everything, giving up on marketing, letting the website go altogether. Still, with retirement looming and his responsibility to keep the income coming, he needed to pick up more speeches and workshops. I should at least have a basic working website, he thought. Eventually, basic program and content information loaded correctly, and he returned to email despite the site's less than perfect appearance. 152 emails, he thought, and just about every one of them wanting me to buy something. He highlighted and selected them, going through the list, then unselecting the rare email that deserved more attention. With one click, he could delete the ones he didn't really need to read. Then he saw it. Just before hitting the delete button, the email from a client he had pursued for 3 years. It came from Elizabeth Martinez, the VP of Sales for Agile Manufacturing, the one person at the company with the real ability to hire a speaker. She asked about his availability to speak at a company gathering and to conduct an in-depth follow-up workshop for company executives. Yes, he thought. But then he paused, wrinkled his brow, and opened his calendar in another tab. He groaned. The date of the meeting fell the week after the upcoming keynote. He needed the gig. He had pursued it for 3 years, but now he hesitated. The looming bronchoscopy concerned him. He doodled for a few minutes, then exited through the coffee shop's back door. He took out his cell phone and dialed Anna. "Can I pick your brain a minute?" he said when she answered. "Yeah, if you don't mind me cooking while we talk." He heard pans rattling in the background. "Sure, no problem. I just need your advice. This company I've really wanted to work with contacted me for a keynote and workshop, but it's in a couple of months. Pre-pandemic, they would have been working at least 6 months to a year ahead, and I wouldn't have even considered it, what with Hope's issues. But now it's almost doable. Almost. I'm not sure. What would you do?" "What I would do is not have kids," she said. "But that ship has not only already sailed, it's already crossed the ocean and unloaded its cargo. How much are we talking about?" Dan named a fee and whistled. "Dang, man, you could really use that." "Why haven't you already backed it?" He paused, asking himself the same question. God knew he could use the money. What happens if I'm away and a nurse calls out? Hope can't stay by herself, and Grace can't take care of her. What if I'm a 6-hour plane flight away? Plus, it's the week after another gig I've accepted, so that makes it even more likely some nursing calendar issue will come up. If Murphy's Law pops up, they are screwed. I'm screwed. I've been doing these things over Zoom at least 3 years, though nothing of this magnitude. This one will require serious travel and time away. A long pause. He heard the kitchen timer go off, followed by the sound of running water. Then she said, "Do you already have a connection with the meeting planner?" "We've talked casually over the last couple of years, but nothing significant. I've done the usual reaching out every month or two, sharing articles of interest and sending links to updated videos. She obviously sees something interesting, but we've never met in person." "Does she know about Hope?" "I think so. I'm uncertain, actually. I've talked about Hope and her challenges in some videos the planner has seen." "What would happen if you wrote her an email explaining your interest and also your hesitation? Maybe have a plan B in place, like a Zoom workshop?" Dan had walked down to the little creek running behind the blissful bean. A couple of ducks floated leisurely against the current, occasionally dipping underneath the water to consume a morsel. The scene and the sound helped Dan clear his mind as he considered Anna's advice. That might work. Giving up the keynote means losing most of the fee, but it's safer and still profitable. And it would save them travel expenses. Just be prepared for her to dump the whole thing. I don't know. It's my idea, I know. But I'm not sure I'd want to take that chance. Thanks, Anna. You've given me something to think about, like always. Anytime. Now I need to get back to ruining supper. Then suddenly realized how long he had been away from his table. He had never had to worry about anything getting lost or stolen at the blissful bean. Everyone seemed to look out for each other, and at least twice someone had turned in something he left behind, a pair of headphones, even an iPad. But all his essential livelihood tools sat unattended, and far more than enough time for someone to gather them up and be long gone. He hurried back in and saw with relief everything sitting right where he had left it, with Kelly approaching with a fresh cup of coffee in one hand, a carafe in the other, and a smile. I saw you out back on the phone and figured you'd like a refill when you returned, she said. Looked pretty intense there for a while. Thank you. Yes, this is perfect timing. Thanks for keeping an eye on things. My pleasure. You might say it's in my job description, keeping an eye on things. Coffee helps to creative process. Here you go. Again, thanks. I need a clear head these days. Then told Kelly about his recent opportunity and his hesitation, wondering why he felt so trusting of this relative stranger, but dismissing it as he responded to her thoughtful questions. How does Grace feel about this? Kelly asked. She's okay with it. Says we don't have to have the money, but she may just be humoring me. She really wants me to be happy, and I appreciate that. But sometimes I think he hides her own wants. Bringing home the money is about the only thing I can do to try to make her happy, since I can get rid of her arthritis, and I can give her back her artistic activities. At least I can buy things to make her happy. That's why I feel like I just need to keep making as much money as I can. What does that cost you, though? Dan sighed. I have to admit, I feel like I'm burning out. I can't tell you how long it's been since I did something just for the fun of it. Looks like you need a warm-up. Here, set your cup over here. Kelly set the small airpot on the table and then put his cup under the spout. Kelly pushed down the lever on top, but no coffee came out, only the sputtering air from an empty carafe. Maybe you've heard before that you can pour from an empty pitcher or an empty airpot, she smiled again. Yeah, some people have reminded of that, he chuckled. Sometimes it seems like I've forgotten how to do anything but pour, though. Does Grace get her cup filled by your efforts? Then looked out the front window and considered. Outside, at the sidewalk tables, a couple sat holding hands and chatting. At another table, a college student sat with a large sketchpad, coffee beside her, drawing the outlines of a scene featuring the old bridge visible through the window. Not really, he said. She appreciates it, enjoys whatever I bring home for a little while, but it winds up just taking up space. It's like nothing is ever enough. Kelly followed his gaze out the front window and said, Grace is an artist, isn't she? What would happen if you brought her some art material? Then tried to remember telling Kelly about Grace's artistic bent, or for that matter, telling Kelly's Grace's name. But he had probably rambled that information without thinking about it, and anyway, it was accurate. I think it would just frustrate her, to tell you the truth. I mean, she already has plenty of that sort of thing. She just can't use it anymore. She can't hold the brushes and such, can't sit in front of a canvas for long, that sort of thing. She uses a computer though, right? You know, they have graphics tablets now that can do incredible things in a small space. And they make adaptive grips to help people with challenge handles the pens. That might be something she wouldn't tire of, and it would feed her soul the way art always has for her. Then looked thoughtful. You know, that sounds like a super idea. I haven't surprised her for a while now, and that could be a real game changer. Thanks, Kelly. I do a little research and order one right now. I bet I could get one by the weekend. Glad to help, and good luck on deciding how to handle that whole speaking opportunity thing. I will leave you to it. Kelly took his empty cup and headed to the kitchen with it, leaving Dan to learn about graphics tablets and adaptive pen holders. The house was quiet, a little too quiet for Grace. She kept the TV talking to itself for company and background noise, but it didn't satisfy like working in the little wood shop out back or helping Dan in the kitchen. Lionel and Hope may have been just down the hall, but Hope couldn't talk at all, and Lionel had her hands full in caring for Hope. With Dan gone to the blissful coffee haven, she might as well have been home by herself. A baseball game filled the silence, with leaving her free to wrestle with the household spreadsheet. Grace always wanted Dan to do the bills along with her, mainly for the companionship, but he had little patience for or knowledge of the household finances. Besides, he said, handling the money was something she could do, whereas she could no longer mow the yard as she desired or help take care of Hope. So he said it made sense for her to do that and other work she could do while he took care of what she couldn't. She had to admit it made sense. That didn't make it any more satisfying. Grace gladly contributed to the well-being of the household, but she hated dealing with all those numbers, and she so much missed her old activities. Her phone rang. She saw it was Dan. Probably forgot something, she thought. That man, to forget to dress if I didn't remind him. She muted the TV and answered. "Hi, sweetie," he said. "I just bounced an idea of Anna. I wonder what you might think about it. I have a chance at a pretty big fee, but I'm not sure I should take it, and I was thinking about offering something more dependable for a lower fee. Do you think we could afford it if I did that? You could quit right now and we would be okay, but I don't want to discourage you." "Why don't you want to take it? I mean, sure, we can afford it, but is it something you really want to do?" "Tell you the truth, I'm not sure. It's something I've been working toward for a long time, but I'm worried about the timing. What if Hope's bronchoscopy falls during the time of the event? I could wind up having to cancel last minute, just like I did for the speech I was supposed to do Friday." "Can they move the event?" "They won't move the event just to accommodate me. I'm sure they already have hotels and meeting rooms booked, people with airplane tickets bought. No scaling back the offer would give them something useful while keeping my options open." "Would you really be okay if I turn down the big ticket?" "Whatever makes you happy, hon. We don't need the money. You're the best. I make a counter proposal then. I just feel better about it. They could replace me easier for that then if I can make that keynote. Plus, if they schedule me for a virtual session, I can probably do that from the hospital if I need be. I love you." "I love you too," she said. "And I miss you. I miss us." Then hung up. Silence descended again. With a sigh, Grace unmuted the TV, now extolling the virtues of some exercise device, and turned back to the spreadsheet. Wednesday afternoon, May 17. Dan absently worked his fork around in the salmon keto bowl while he continued trying to focus on his screen. The email seemed clunky, and he sought a more succinct way to propose the virtual workshop to Elizabeth Martinez. He wasn't even sure yet he would send it. His fork came up with nothing but lettuce. He had eaten all the good stuff without noticing. Time for a pastry boost, he thought. Along with outstanding coffee and tea, the blissful bean offered light breakfast and lunch fare, along with an array of muffins, cookies, macaroons, and parfait. Mid-afternoon, on a day of marketing emails and social media posts, often offered the perfect time for a slice of lemon loaf pound cake or cinnamon coffee cake, along with a coffee refill. Though no one had ever bothered his belongings, Dan always tried to claim one of the small tables in a line of sight with the counter, so he could stop worrying about his laptop or his tablet walking off in a few seconds, left unguarded. At 4 p.m., the coffee shop was relatively quiet, with no one manning the cash register, but he knew someone would come to it soon. He took the 5 steps to the counter and waited. He saw Sean, the cafe manager, back by the drip coffee maker. Shaw nodded to him and said, "Someone will be with you soon, sir." "No problem," he said. "I'm not in a rush." Two women entered the back door, chatting and carrying shopping bags, then leaned on the counter in front of the cash register and perused the offerings in the pastry display case. The two women walked to the counter ahead of him, still chatting. At the exact moment, a new barista approached the register. She said to the two women, "Can I get something for you?" Without looking at them, one of them said, "We would like to get 2 large lattes and 2 blueberry muffins." Dan looked sideways at them, but they ignored him. The barista rang up the order, took the cash, then turned to Dan as the women walked away, oblivious of anything around them as they continued their conversation. "And what can I get for you?" Dan smiled and said, Didn't even notice I was standing here, did they?" The barista's smile vanished, and her eyes widened. "Oh, were you here first? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to let them cut in front of you." Dan chuckled and waved it off. "It's no problem, and not your fault." I didn't want to say anything. They may have done it on purpose, but probably they just didn't notice, and it wasn't worth making a scene. I think it's funny. She smiled again, relieved, and said, "Thank you for understanding. It's hard to keep track of people even when we are not terribly busy." Then pointed to a slice of iced lemon loaf and took it back to his table, the incident forgotten. That was interesting. The warm contralto seemed to come out of the air a few feet behind him. He looked up to find Kelly standing next to his table, smiling softly. She carried a butter tub with a dish towel draped over one shoulder, but she looked calm and relaxed, in no hurry at all. "Oh, hi, Kelly. What was interesting?" "The way you handled that. A lot of people would have been upset at someone jumping line like that. Why didn't you say anything?" Kelly's manner of asking struck Dan. He often reminded clients that questioning didn't imply doubting or arguing, something people often seem to assume. Questioning just means inquiring, and Kelly's body language communicated no judgment or resistance, only curiosity and openness. "I thought about it," he said, "but then I thought they were probably lost in conversation and just not noticing what was going on around them. I'll probably never see them again. I couldn't see anything useful resulting from pointing out their rudeness. Besides, they could have gotten defensive. I let someone else raise their consciousness." Kelly laughed and then said, "Have you ever noticed most people seem to go through life unaware of anyone else around them? Now that you mention it, I've often thought that caused most traffic problems. People drive as if there is no one else on the road. They either ignore everyone else or treat them as obstacles." She nodded thoughtfully and said, "It's almost like when we grow up, we quit looking around at the rest of the world. It's different for a 3-year-old. Isn't it wonderful how they look at everything as if they're seeing it for the first time? Maybe that's because they are." "That's pretty wise," Dan said. "I guess in a lot of ways. The average 3-year-old is wiser than most adults. They're just so open." "Sounds like you're onto something," Kelly said. "Maybe you should write it down. Who knows, that could become a speech for you sometime." With that, she gave a confident nod and turned away, stopping to pick up some empty mugs left on a table right beside the "Please bust your table" sign, giving the table a quick wipe with her towel before disappearing into the kitchen. "I wonder how old she is," thought Dan. Kelly could be his daughter or even his granddaughter, but she seemed confident beyond her years. He realized he really couldn't tell about her age. After teaching college for 40 years, he had learned to recognize students straight out of high school as typical college-age students compared with non-traditional students coming back to college. Straight from high school students looked wide-eyed, lost, and out of their element. Even the ones who swaggered around projected more of an attempt at confidence than actual confidence. Older students coming back to school after spending time in the workplace, sometimes possessed even less confidence, but they usually gave off more of an air of genuine, quiet confidence, especially those breaking out of a familiar pattern to go back to college in their 40s or 50s. Life has a way of making you aware of your limitations and your strengths, and non traditional students often brought that awareness into the new adventure of midlife formal education. Kelly exuded the confidence and life experience of one of those older students, but looked as if she could be anywhere between 20 and 40. Then gathered his materials. To head home, the email could wait until tomorrow, and besides, no doubt, Grace needed something done around the house. He needed to get his own work done, but he also didn't want to leave Grace without support any longer than necessary. Among the papers, he found the receipt from his most recent order nearly an hour ago, well before the incident with the clueless pair. Written on the back in elegant handwriting, he saw, "Like a 3-year-old, look for the wonder." He looked up, but Kelly had vanished. Had she written that while she stood talking with him? He hadn't seen it. Had she written it when he picked up his first coffee of the day? But how could she have known they would have a conversation about the 3-year-old's handle life? Besides, a different barista had taken his order and handed him the receipt. Then thought about what she had said and the note someone had left on the receipt. He tucked the note away, then pulled out the red sketchbook he used for mind mapping and rough outlining. He paused for a moment and then wrote at the top of a blank page, "The way of 3-year-old wisdom." He thought a minute more and then jotted down the first guideline. Look for curiosity. Look at the world the way a 3-year-old does, as if everything is new. Honor your wonder, even curiosity about yourself, Dan thought. Thank you for sharing this quiet moment with me. If this brought you peace, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the video, and share it with someone who might need a little stillness too. Until next time, keep listening inward.